Ah, boy, here we go.
You know, if Square's insulting Final Fantasy 15 DLC practices so far weren't bad enough, now we find out that we're getting a quote-unquote Season 2 of DLC content for Final Fantasy 15. The DLC including Episode Ardent, Episode Luna, Episode Aranea, and an alternate history episode. And with this announcement, it has suddenly become so clear to me, so absolutely clear, what Final Fantasy 15 has become. And sorry if I mispronounce your name, but shout out to the user Myair for coming up with the title for this video, which is Final Fantasy 15: A Telltale Story. And the more I think about it, Myair, the more that title really does make sense. And I just want to point out how ridiculous that this whole DLC situation with Final Fantasy 15 has become. Think about it. We have Ignis, Gladio, and Prompto, our three main allies, getting their time to shine not in the main game, but in DLC episodes. Luna, the love interest, gets barely any time to develop in the main game. Instead, she also gets a DLC episode. Ardent, the main villain, whose backstory was just barely touched on in the main game, is instead relegated to DLC. Aranea gets her own DLC episode just because she became a fan favorite, just because of horny fanboys. That's really the only reason she has a DLC episode coming. The only DLC episode, which is somewhat justified as being DLC and not a part of the original main game, is the alternate history episode that is coming, because it's a what-if scenario, essentially. That's really what it is. It's essentially a what-if scenario. So it kind of makes sense that wasn't in the main game and instead it's DLC. So when it comes to the alternate history episode, you know what? I'll give Square Enix a pass. Alright, I'll give them a pass on that one. But the other DLC episodes, Ignis' story, Gladio's story, Prompto's story, Ardent's story, Luna's story, and I guess Aranea's story if you really want to include it, should have been a part of the original main game. And it's obvious now to me that with this announcement of Season 2 DLC, that we day one buyers, we who bought the game at launch, the launch version of Final Fantasy 15, we got screwed. And the launch version of Final Fantasy 15 was in essence Episode Noctis. It wasn't the main game, it wasn't the central part of the game, it was Episode Noctis. It was the first episode of a long line of episodes. That's really what the launch version of Final Fantasy 15 was. And Hajime Tabata, he even admitted as much at one point by saying that Final Fantasy 15 was meant to be told solely from Noctis' perspective, meaning that the launch version of the game was basically Episode Noctis. Day one buyers paid the full $60 AAA game price for what amounted to a fraction of the full game. And then we still have to pay for the other episodes for the rest of the game. We essentially paid for what amounts to, in terms of content, maybe half of a game if I'm being generous, at a AAA complete game price. That is a scam, the likes of which I have never seen in gaming. They try to sell the day one version of the game as a full game when it was in fact just the first episode of the game. That's really what it was. As a Square Enix fan, as a Final Fantasy fan, as a consumer, I feel violated. My wallet feels violated. My fan essence, if you want to call it that, feels violated. And this makes me feel disgusting that I actually bought the day one version. Day one buyers got utterly and royally screwed, and we should all be pissed off about it. Square Enix or any other video game company should never be allowed to do something like this again. Like I said, this is one of the biggest scams in gaming that I have ever seen, and I have been gaming since like 1996 or 1997. I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable. And to make it even worse, this Season 2 of DLC is set to continue through 2019. And considering that we're getting 4 of these episodes, it might even bleed into 2020. In other words, the DLC abuse of Final Fantasy 15 may continue 3 to 4 years after the initial launch of the game. I mean, look, with Telltale games, you know what you're buying. You know that you're buying an episodic game when you buy one of their games. You know that each episode is going to be priced reasonably at a fraction of the cost because each episode is only a fraction of the full game. They don't charge you $60 for the first episode and then make you pay more money for the other episodes. Telltale doesn't cheat you. They don't cheat you, they don't lie to you or try to deceive you. Oh, and on top of that, I actually really enjoy playing Telltale games, which is far more than I can say for Final Fantasy 15. I mean, look, if Square was going to make Final Fantasy 15 episodic, then they should have just been honest and said, hey guys, we can't finish the development of this game in a timely manner, so we're going to release each part of the game as episodes, and we will price each episode reasonably, and then at the end, the total cost of all the episodes will roughly equal a full game. If they had just been honest about that and upfront that they would do that, then maybe things would be better, and I wouldn't be on here on YouTube having to point out the BS that Square has pulled with this game. But no. They decided to deceive us and to scam us, and I will continue to call Square out on the Final Fantasy 15 crap. And if you're one of those people that are still defending Square Enix over Final Fantasy 15, if you're still defending the Final Fantasy 15 DLC abuse, then please, for the love of God, for the sake of all of us, please do yourself a favor, do us a favor, and go seek mental help. Because you're being nothing but a corporate bitch. You really are. That being said, comment down below, like or dislike the video depending on how salty you are, share the video, follow me on social media, click that bell for notifications, and this is ZJ, a very angry ZJ, signing off.